This book was erased, not by accident, not by oversight, but by design. Because Darth Plagueis isn't just a Star Wars novel, it's a blueprint, a Sith manuscript for how to manipulate biology, economics, government, and fate itself. And while Disney gave you rebels and redemptions, this book gave you the raw engine behind it all. Fear, planning, immortality, the Force, as a system to be broken. But that's why it was buried, because this story doesn't ask you to believe in destiny. It asks if you can rewrite it, and once you read it, the galaxy doesn't look the same. You've heard the story, the so-called tragedy, told by a smirking puppet master in an opera house. But that wasn't the truth. That was Palpatine's myth, a bedtime story for Sith. In reality, Plagueis wasn't a victim. He was a moon, a scientist, a CEO, a dark-side transhumanist who didn't fear death. He wanted to master it. To Plagueis, the Force wasn't mystical. It was biological infrastructure. Midichlorians were not sacred. They were lab rats. He studied them, manipulated them, bent them into submission. He wasn't trying to live forever through willpower. He was rewriting the DNA of the universe. And his apprentice, a teenage aristocrat from Naboo, refined, brilliant, rotten, a creature who would weaponize charm, cruelty, and politics, not because he was manipulated by them, but because he believed in Plagueis's logic. This is the horror no Jedi holocron wants to show you. The Sith didn't just crave power, they understood systems. Jedi balance was a lullaby. Sith doctrine was an operating manual. They weren't mystics, they were engineers. January 2012, Darth Plagueis is released, a novel that dared to unravel the myth and reveal the system beneath. Less than 10 months later, Disney buys Star Wars. The book, purged, legends stamped, forgotten. This wasn't just a story about Sith. It was a political blueprint and an indictment of everything clean, sanitized Star Wars would become. It reveals 3 truths Disney couldn't market. 1. The Jedi were doomed long before Episode 1. The rot wasn't caused by clones. It was orchestrated decades earlier through finance, genetics, and prophecy manipulation. 2. The Force isn't sacred. It's a tool for the elite. To the Jedi, the Force was divine. To Plagueis, it was raw code to be edited, bent until it obeyed. 3. Good versus evil was always propaganda. This book strips the illusion. The Jedi weren't light. The Sith weren't just evil. They were simply the ones who understood how the galaxy worked and refused to pretend. A brand needs icons, villains you can sell on lunchboxes. But Darth Plagueis isn't a villain. He's a technocrat, a system builder, a dark mirror of every real-world empire. The book doesn't end with a lightsaber duel. It ends with financial sabotage, biological manipulation, and engineered genocide. It's not Star Wars as fantasy. It's Star Wars as warning. And that's why they buried it. Here's what Disney fears you knowing. Palpatine wasn't born evil. He was cultivated, engineered, fed. Step 1, identification. Plagueis finds a 17-year-old son of Naboo nobility. Quiet, sharp, invisible, but behind the eyes, unlimited ambition. No lightsaber duel, no Force lightning, just recognition. The Sith didn't search for strength, they searched for leverage. Step 2, destabilization. Plagueis manipulates Naboo's plasma exports, energy shortages, trade bottlenecks. A minor economic shift, enough to fracture the royal family's influence and isolate Sheev. This wasn't seduction, it was conditioning, a sociological algorithm. Step 3, elimination. When the moment came, he didn't hesitate. Palpatine didn't lose his family, he executed them. No rage, no passion, just clear, deliberate removal of obstacles. And when he returned to school, he graduated with honors. The Sith didn't corrupt the Republic. They engineered its collapse. This wasn't corruption. It was urban planning. Collapse designed from birth and woven through policies, banking systems, and bloodlines. The Jedi kept searching for shadows, but the darkness wasn't hiding. It was legislating. Evil in Plagueis doesn't roar. It whispers. It calculates. It smiles across Senate tables. And that is far too real for Disney to canonize. Plagueis didn't build an empire. He built a thesis, a galaxy-wide science experiment. Not to study the Force, but to break it. In one experiment, before the eyes of his apprentice, Sheev Palpatine, Plagueis successfully resurrected a dead soldier, not metaphorically, not mystically, biologically. He and Sidious attempted something even darker, a force dyad, a soul bond, a calculated tethering of essence between master and apprentice to cheat death together. But it failed, because their trust failed, and because the Force, even enslaved, fights back. Where Jedi ignited sabers, Plagueis rewrote trade law. He destabilized economies, engineered tax rebellions, and collapsed planetary alliances, all through legislation. Every treaty was a weapon. Every vote in the Senate a calculated strike. He didn't fight the Republic, he infected it. This isn't fantasy, it's biopunk Sith alchemy. Not wizards with powers, engineers with blueprints. The Force was no longer sacred. It was code, flesh, currency, and Plagueis, he was writing godhood into its structure. Darth Plagueis isn't just a novel, it's a decoder ring. It takes the mythology of Star Wars and reveals the infrastructure underneath. The clone army wasn't commissioned, it was engineered. Sifo Dyas didn't act alone. Plagueis used shell corporations and interbank networks to fund the clone project years before Episode 2. The Jedi didn't walk into a trap. They marched into it proudly. Anakin's virgin birth was a failed experiment. Anakin Skywalker, not chosen, constructed. Plagueis attempted to create life through direct manipulation of the Force. But the Force retaliated. The result? A boy born from the backlash. Raw power with no leash. An anomaly. A miscalculation. The Jedi Purge was a business plan 1,000 years in the making. The Purge wasn't revenge. It was execution of a corporate strategy. Laid out by Darth Bane a millennium prior. Passed through whispers, refined in boardrooms, and triggered with a clone army and Order 66. The Jedi fell because they didn't understand the Sith weren't rebels, they were planners. The ultimate heresy. Star Wars was never about good versus evil. This book flips the table. It tells you the Force isn't mystical. The Jedi aren't virtuous. The Sith aren't insane. It paints a galaxy ruled by systems, by false binaries, by manufactured narratives that keep the Republic asleep while the architects carve power in the shadows. Disney didn't just erase Darth Plagueis, they buried it. They quarantined it, because it's everything they can't monetize, and everything they can't explain away. It's too cerebral. There's no cackling, no lightning for the camera. Plagueis doesn't scream about power. He quotes Schopenhauer. He discusses biological determinism. He debates fate as a virus. He doesn't entertain. He unsettles. It's too real. Plagueis doesn't conquer with stormtroopers. He collapses economies. He manipulates interest rates. He funds both sides of a war, then invests in the cleanup. This isn't fantasy. It's how power actually works. It's too subversive. It doesn't just challenge the Sith, it challenges the Jedi. It asks, what if the Guardians of Peace were the ones who made tyranny inevitable by clinging to ignorance? Disney needs Star Wars to be simple. Good guys, bad guys, toys. But Darth Plagueis doesn't sell hope, it sells truth. Here's the final takeaway. The blueprint. Don't read Darth Plagueis for Star Wars trivia. Read it because it's a blueprint. A cold, deliberate instruction manual on how empires are built and how republics die. 1. Control the currency. Demis Holdings isn't just a front, it's a lesson. Own the flow of money, and you don't need an army. The war funds itself. 2. Weaponize faith. The Jedi believed they were servants of the Force, but that faith became their blindfold. Plagueis let them preach balance while he rewrote the code beneath their temple. 3. Make your enemy choose their chains. Sidious wasn't a tyrant imposed. He was elected, voted into power, celebrated. That's the final Sith trick. Make the people demand their own enslavement. Here's the final warning. This book was never about lightsabers. It's about leverage, about systems, about the quiet architecture of control. And that's why Disney buried it. Because the most dangerous stories aren't the ones that entertain. They're the ones that awaken.
I can't have your will tempered by feelings of regret or compassion. You were brought into being to lead. Therefore, you must see every living thing as nothing more than a tool to elevate you, to move you to your destined place. This is our galaxy, Sidious. Our reality.